You know, there's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hi there, folks. This is Alan Danziger, a.k.a. Chainsaw Jerry, the original van driver of the Texas ChainSaw Massacre. And I hope you'll tune in to a fabulous podcast, BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father. And as always, I bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. But before I bring on my awesome guest, get out and subscribe to BODS Mayhem Hour on the YouTube page. Just click subscribe and click that notification bell to check out all these things that's coming down the pipe, because we're working on a lot of Halloween stuff. It's Halloween, but it's Halloween every day for me. So for the folks that just think I just do this, through October, no, it's Halloween every single day, and it's horror every single day. If you don't like it, then there's something wrong with you. So anyway, I want to bring on my awesome guest, Mr. Alan Danziger. He's Chainsaw Jerry, driver of the van from Tobe Hooper's 1974, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, inspired by the serial killer Ed Gein. And if you've not checked out Ed Gein, whatever, go check him out, because man, he is a really brutal fella. But Alan, man, how you doing? And welcome to the Halloween podcast, my friend.
Well, thanks for having me, and happy Halloween to all your listeners, your followers, or whatever. And mentioning Ed Gein, I don't know if you can see this lamp. This is a face lamp on my desk, and it's from the Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer collection.
Oh wow, man, that's awesome.
I'm kidding.
See, Alan's a prankster. He got me. I do know that there's a lot of paranormal investigators, man, that's actually being in front of his stuff. And I don't know, man. I love paranormal stuff, but I think that's a little extra wild for me, knowing that that's somebody that was living, you know what I'm saying? And their skin hanging there. It's like, no, that's fucking morbid, man. No. Well,
Chainsaw is based very loosely, on Ed Gein.
Right.
That there's a little of the cannibalism that's just touched on. It's very undercurrent in the movie.
You were living in Austin, Texas, and your neighbor had introduced you to Tobe Hooper. After meeting director, he put you in his first feature film titled Eggshells. So prior to this, had you been in other films, or was you wanting to pursue this?
No. In fact, I had not. I never acted before, and some of the reviewers continued that I wasn't an actor in Chainsaw. But anyway, yeah, I was. I met him while I was doing social work, and I was working with a young couple that the movie Eggshells was kind of ostensibly about. And since they were doing volunteer work, I met Tobe, and he asked if he can shoot a scene at my house with this couple, and I said fine. And so they came over, and the movie that turned was Eggshells, which is kind of an interesting movie. It's kind of like a hippy dippy psychedelic. If you haven't seen it, there's a lot of neat effects in that movie, and you can see really the brilliance of Tobe in that movie. But anyway, what it was something they called cinema verite, where they just come to your house, they shoot it, and there are no lines. It's just as it happens. And so they shot a scene with me at the time with my wife, and my son was like 8 months old, and they're both in the movie Eggshells. And I guess they liked what I did, or they thought I was funny at the time. Maybe I was, I don't know. But they kept adding scenes for me to be in. And then when the movie came out, we were in it, throughout the movie. So the movie came out in '69, and I think about 30 or 40 people saw that movie. It went nowhere, and then it got tied up in legal ramifications or whatever. And so I didn't hear anything from them for about 4 years, and then all of a sudden, I got a call from them, and they said, "Hey, we got a script here that we'd like you to read for the part of Jerry, I guess the wiseacre driver." And so they gave me the script. I went home. I closed the door and I read it in like an hour and a half. I was spellbound by it. And I called them and said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then I think I got the script in June or July, and we started shooting. I think we started shooting in July. So I got it, I think, in May or whatnot, and then we were off to the races.
Well, what was your thoughts reading that script, though? I mean, and especially, did it have your death scene in it, or was it just like bits and pieces of what he wanted you to do? What was your thoughts on that?
It's hard to, it's so long ago. I just know that I was really mesmerized. I had never really but I had never read really a script before. But it just moved so rapidly. And, and then I said, well, you're going to get killed in this movie. But how's that going to happen? And as it turned out, it did happen. And that's actually really one of my favorite scenes, is my death scene, because I had them blindfold me, sitting out on the porch out at the house, which is now a restaurant in Kingsland, Texas.
How crazy!
And it's a destination that people come from all over, literally from all over the world, to see this house. And so I had them, blindfold me, which, as I mentioned, was my homage to the Stanislavski method. So I just got myself really worked up. I was literally crazy before I walked into that house. So when I went in there and go into the kitchen and see the hook, and then I see the freezer. I mean, it just took over. And went in, opened up the freezer, and just freaked out. And then Leatherface comes into the scene. I start screaming, and I just tore out of the house. And then Tobe yelled, "Cut!" And he came over, put his arm around me. He said, "Alan, that was a great scream, but you got to wait for him to come into the framing of the film so we can get it." So we had to do it a couple of times, and I still was freaked out, but they got it. And so that's one of my favorite scenes.
And this whole movie, I mean, every bit of it is iconic. When you first watch it, it's like, but I'm telling you, man, if that movie does not grab you and scare you, because that's one of the first movies I think I've ever watched. It was that one, and the next one I watched was Halloween. But man, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just like, scared the crap out of a lot of kids back in the day. It stuck with me, man. I absolutely loved horror after that. I mean, that was just like, let's see what else is out there. And I think that the movies from the 70s, and I'm not knocking the ones that are out there right now, they're so much better.
Well, you didn't have CGI. I mean, what you had was a lot more, I think, believability. Mm-hmm. And in our case, it almost played like a documentary. You know what I mean? None of us really were actors. And so, it was just a believable that this could happen, and especially in Texas, back in the 70s. So I think that was a forerunner of things like the Blair Witch Project or whatever. It was just a real believable movie, and I think that's what fans keep telling us. They still believe that it's a true story.
Oh yeah, and sadly today it still messes with people, because you're driving down the road and you don't know where you're at, and you're like, don't stop somewhere, because you remember how the Texas Chainsaw Massacre started. It's like,
and I stopped picking up hitchhikers myself, and it was a movie, and that was it for me.
Way to go, Ed. Ed ruined it for Jerry here. He
did.
There you go. All right, Alan, I got to ask this though, man. What was your expectations coming into this movie? Would you kind of have like any expectations, or you just want to see how it went?
Well, to give you a little bit of idea of what my expectation was, Tobe invited me to watch some of the rushes, of some of the scenes. And so I went in and saw it. This is just the raw footage. And then he said, well, Alan, what do you think I could do to improve the movie? And I said, have the seats facing away from the screen. And he didn't like that. And so he never called me back. So no, I didn't think anything was going to happen. I mean, back then the phrase was, if you didn't like something, you said it's a turkey. And I honestly thought it was going to be a turkey. But what changed it was the change of the title from Leatherface to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I thought that was brilliant. And then the editing of the movie, how they tightened it up, and the sound effects and the voiceover that John Larroquette does, all of that changed the whole look of it and the feel of it. And I literally was taken in after, seeing it at a premiere.
So what about the actual driving scene where you're driving the van and you got to pick up Ed Neal as the hitchhiker, man? Let's talk about that a little bit. How was that scene and working on that, man? Was it difficult? Did you have to do a take after take?
I wish I knew. It's hard for me to remember, but I mean, I literally did we drove. It wasn't like we were on a trailer,
right?
It was the real deal. So you had to drive and talk at the same time. And it really was like over 100 degrees. There's no AC in the van, you know what I mean? And then you've got us plus Tobe, a cigar, the cameraman, the boom. It was like 8 people. I mean, it was like being in a sauna, but all in all, it was a lot of, fun. And I knew Ed before for my business. And so after the takes and stuff, we'd kid around and whatnot. So it really was a blast for me. I had I had nothing but good times about doing that movie.
You didn't see Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface until your death scene. I want to talk about that a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, so what was your reaction when you got that blindfold off and then you seen him as the actual Leatherface, man? Did that kind of like shock you into more going to your scream? Or
well, you hear the scream. I mean, people still to this day. That was a total wuss scream, but it was me. I mean, that's how it happened. And the funny part of it is, I never met Gunnar. I didn't know who he was. After the movie, and while we were shooting the movie, Tobe in his way, they kept us apart. So there was no fraternizing. So I had not seen him in his costume because I was doing a camp for kids, and so they worked around my schedule to do it. But like I say, we didn't know each other, but after the movie, we became good friends, and Gunnar stayed with me for the summer before he moved to Maine. And he really was a terrific, really bright guy. And I sorely miss him to this day.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to meet Gunnar. Glad I got to meet Gunnar at the first Scarefest in Lexington, Kentucky. And I told him how much this movie meant to me. This is a cult classic. I mean, if nobody has, and I'm not knocking nobody, but I'm just saying, this is my opinion. If Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not in your top 4, then redo your horror, guys, because this movie is classic, man. And what you guys did, I think, set the actual bar for horror classics and slashers and stuff. So kudos to you guys and Tobe for doing all this, man.
Well, have you read his book, Texas Chainsaw Confidential?
I've not got to pick it up yet. No, I have not.
You need to do that. But I had a bed and breakfast in Luling, Texas, and Gunnar came down a couple of times, and on the way out, he was telling me about him writing the book, and he thought, what I represented, in the movie, and I basically said that what we were was fodder, for the movie. We were just there to fill in some time until we get killed. That was our role, to get killed, and we did.
Do you feel this movie was a difficult one to make? And did you even think it would be in theaters because of the brutality of it?
Well, it almost wasn't. I mean, they almost got like an X rating. They cut out some things, and he was trying to get a PG rating, and they were lucky, I guess, to get an R rating. And it was a difficult shoot. Not so much for me, other than some of the scenes in the van when it was just ultra hot, but the scenes in the house, where they tried getting ready to kill Marilyn, that I hear was just brutal. They shot for like 24 to 36 hours, depending on who you talk to. It's like 140 degrees in there. The food was rotting. Gunnar was wearing his clothes for like 6 weeks. So, I mean, it was more than rank or ripe or whatever you'd call it. It was a nightmare. But the result was that it's so much even more believable. I mean, everybody is on edge, and crazed. Poor Marilyn, when the movie was over, I think they had to put her in an institution for a while.
Oh, wow.
Her knees were messed up. I mean,
Yeah.
she really suffered, for this movie.
Did you think this movie would have the impact on the horror world as it does today when this was being filmed back in the 70s? Did you think of anything like, man, this may actually be something down the road that people need to take a look at more?
No, and I don't think any of us did. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It was the fact of how it came together, the editing, the change to the title, and then realizing when it came out. I mean, it was beating Enter the Dragon, or one of the Bruce Lee movies. I mean, it was going up the charts like with a bullet. I mean, all of us thought like we hit the brass ring because they paid us very little, for the movie. In fact, I got more money for some of the other movies where I'm not even in it. They use clips of me. I got more money for that than I got for being in the movie. But so they offered us a percentage, of the proceeds, and I signed it and whatnot, never thinking anything was going to happen. So when the movie came out and it's going up like a bullet, we're all thinking, hey, we hit the brass ring, and then we get these small checks, and then it turns out that the movie was cut up. There were so many fingers in the pie, had more hands in the pie than the Muppets, and so it just didn't turn out. So all of us felt like, we got shafted the first time. What I usually tell people is the real massacre took place after the movie, because the original distributors were mafia, and that's where the movie went. That's where a lot of the monies went.
Jeez, wow. Do you think that if this movie was made in today's time versus the 70s, do you think it would have the impact as it would now, or no?
Well, you're seeing we have sequels.
All right.
They're on Netflix. So, but they haven't been able to, for whatever reason, to capture lightning in a bottle. It looks like once the genie's out, and it's rare that you can find where the remakes, approach the original. And I think that's what, I've enjoyed some of the remakes for what it is. And even the new one, I saw the premiere of it here at the Alamo Drafthouse in Austin, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but it wasn't the same.
No, you're right.
And I think people, for whatever reason, even though we're not on screen that long, but they like the characters. We were believable. When we go to the conventions, it's rare. Usually the heroes are the bad guys, and they want their autograph, and they don't care about the victims. But not at these conventions. When we go there, they're just as great to us as to Grandpa or the hitchhiker or Gunnar.
Yeah,
Leatherface.
You guys were a huge part in that movie. I mean, regardless of the death scenes, you guys were a huge part of that, because Leatherface didn't come in kind of till like toward the end of the movie in a way.
Yeah.
So you guys are a huge part of it. Movies that are coming out and they're doing these remakes, I just know. I just want the old ones to be left alone. Leave them be. It's like George Romero's movies. So many people have made so many remakes of his movies, and they can't come close to it. And I was going to say it. They cannot, Alan. Can't even come close.
Well, I see it. The fans, they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, horror fans are great fans. They really are. But Chainsaw fans are the bomb. They're the best. And they love this movie, and they come out to see us. And we did one at a convention in Dallas a few months ago, at Frightmare. It was like a murderer's row. We were all lined up, and they were just, they couldn't get enough.
That's awesome.
And they just asked, a lot of questions about the movie and what we thought about it and how we made it and whatnot. So it's a lot of fun.
So, but what's that mean to you though, when you see those people lined up at those conventions to come meet and talk to you, especially for
it knocks me out. It knocks me out. And at this age, I'm just glad to be vertical, so, and that people want to talk to me, or ask, to have me on a podcast or whatever. And actually, I've done a couple of things for some movies that haven't come out yet. I've done voiceover for a movie called Cannibal Comedian.
Yes.
That's cannibal that goes into stand-up. And then I did a scene for a horror movie that hasn't come out yet called Storage Locker. I get killed in that. It's the story of my life. I mean, Rodney Dangerfield got no respect. I just get killed.
That's the movie I was going to ask you about the comedy one. Now, how was that, man, working on that? If you could talk about just a little bit.
Well, it was a voiceover, kind of like a John Larroquette kind of thing. And when I did it, it was during the power outage here in Austin. So I had no heat. I was living in my kitchen. It was like Rear Window with James Stewart, where all I could see was accidents happening out on the corner. So I did the best that I could, and then they said that's fine, and they were happy with it. So, but I don't know how it got edited or what the situation is. I'm hoping I'll get to see it when I think it may be slated to come out either at the end of this year or early next year.
I want to know what's it mean to you to be part of this iconic franchise. When you sat down, you finally it hit you, man. What's it mean to you to be part of this iconic horror film?
Oh, like I say, it means a great deal, because I think none of us ever thought anything was going to happen, and to see the response of people, and it's not only people that saw it in the 70s. I mean, you got new kids coming up now. I mean, I've had 8-year-olds come up and say they love this movie. I mean, I can't believe that they're seeing it. But I think back to when it came out, I took my son, who was like 5, just to see the coming attractions, so he could see his dad, up on the screen. And that's almost 50 years ago, and he's still in weekly therapy. So that gives you some idea. This was a tough situation.
What do you hope people take away while watching this movie, man? What, for the first time, people that's never watched this cult classic, man, what do you hope they get from it?
Well, hopefully that if they get scared, I mean, people love that kind of genre. I just hope it works. It's really not as bloody as people think. I mean,
no,
it's very little gore when compared to all these movies that are coming out, since then. So I think the implied horror of it, I mean, you don't see that much, and I think it stokes the imagination. The mind gets this. Maybe in the mind, it's more horrific than it is.
God, your mind can play tricks on you, and if this movie doesn't play tricks on you with your mind, man, and psych you out, then there's something wrong. But it definitely will, for sure. I want to know this though: with the actual house being turned into like a restaurant, like you said, do they have a lot of the stuff that was in the movie still there?
They do. They don't have a lot, but they have some. And in the bar area, there are pictures, and upstairs, I think they have a grandpa in the restaurant, and it's an iconic, it's an iconic place. In fact, I celebrated my 80th birthday a few weeks ago out in Kingsland, and I found a van that was the same model van that I drove in the movie, and I found it in South Dakota. I brought it down here to Austin, and my mechanic has been restoring it, and a fan found the right color, the original color from the movie, and so we repainted. We put the blood stain on, and I took it out there for my birthday, and I said I'd like to take photo ops with it. And all the monies that we raised from that, I wanted to donate to the families in Uvalde that were impacted by the tragedies a few months ago and are still impacted. And they love that idea. And so we raised, close to $10,000 in just a few weeks. So I'm really proud of that. And the horror fans were the best. They just came out. We had a VIP dinner that night before. It was great turnout. And so it was really amazing. It was an amazing day. People came from all over. It was wonderful.
Do you think Tobe Hooper would be extremely proud to see how much this movie has impacted people? I mean, has made, this an iconic film.
No, I think he lived long enough to see it. He'd been to some of these conventions and stuff like that. So I think he would have been pleased, as to what happened. And fortunately, Kim Hinkle, who wrote the movie, is still alive. So he's really seeing it also. I mean, all of us are really flabbergasted and, enthralled at the response that it's gotten. It's amazing.
I want to know what's your favorite part about Halloween, my friend. It's either like getting candy when you were younger or scaring the crap out of people. What was your favorite part about it?
I like going trick or treating. You know, I'm from the Bronx, so I go to the different apartments, and I didn't care for the candy. I wanted the cash, you know, and so I was tuned in back then. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, growing up was great.
Alan still goes trick or treating today as Leatherface. He's like, "Give me your damn candy. Give me candy." Alan, my friend, thank you for doing this interview with me. And if somebody wants to buy an autograph online from you or anything, how can they do that, sir?
They go to my website, chainsawjerry.com, and we've got things like my talking bobbleheads.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you can listen, you'll see. Or 2.0. So I got my award-winning talking bobbleheads. I have a fan who made some action figures of me. And then I also have Chainsaw Jerry's killer beef jerky.
Oh.
And on the blade, it says, "We were the meats."
That's true. It's very true.
Got a bunch of stuff. And then there's photos if people want to purchase them. It's all online. And so I hope they go to my website, chainsawjerry.com.
I will be purchasing a couple of autographs, and I'm going to be giving one away on the podcast. So I do this for everybody. You know, this comes out of my pocket, folks. And I'm just giving back to you all to support me to sit here and watch my podcast. I truly appreciate it. So before I let you go, would you care to do a promo for my show, Alan?
What do I need to do? Hi there, folks. This is Alan Danziger, a.k.a. Chainsaw Jerry, the original van driver of the Texas ChainSaw Massacre. And I hope you'll tune into a fabulous podcast. And I believe it's called BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. Please get out and check out our Facebook page as our podcast link and our YouTube link, and get out and subscribe to that YouTube link. Click that notification bell and subscribe to me. And please, if you have not watched the original Texas ChainSaw Massacre, do yourself a favor and go watch it. I'm just gonna say go watch it, because if you don't like it, then there's something very wrong with you. That's just me.
I agree. If you loved World War I, you're gonna love this movie.
That's exactly right, folks. This is good. I'm gonna say this right now. It's good horror related stuff. It's not, sex stuff and all this other stuff that you see in these newer movies. This is basically cult classic horror stuff. So please go watch this. This is an iconic film. And Alan, thank you so much for doing this interview with me, man, and hope to have you back on here many, many more times.
Thank you so much, and I hope I'll be around many, many more times, man.
You will, my sir. You will. Happy Halloween to you too, man.
Take care. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Happy Halloween.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.